It's still NTV, and today we are having a conversation about education. Now, quality education is a fundamental human right and essential for the exercise of all other human rights. It promotes individual freedom and empowerment and yields important development benefits. Now, education is a powerful tool by which economically and socially marginalized adults and children can lift themselves out of poverty and participate fully as citizens. One of the prerequisites for achieving this as a means of human capital development is the availability of competent and effective teachers. So we are in preparation to celebrate the International Teachers' Day on 5th October 2020. We ought to discuss about the National Teachers Policy. Now, to bring this home, I have Mr. Birungi Bannett, who happens to be the National Policy Coordinator from the Ministry of Education. We have Mr. Wadgahade Brighton, Assistant Commissioner for the Policy Analysis from the Ministry of Education, and Mr. Philbert Baguma, the General Secretary from UNATU, that is the umbrella that brings together all teachers. Now, be sure to follow this conversation on our digital platforms as we're talking YouTube and Facebook, and the hashtag is National Teacher Policy. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Andrew.
Good to have you, and I understand you are in Bukedia, you are in State House this early morning. He was actually trying to find sure that we have this conversation. Well, to start with, Mr. Birungi Bannett, this policy, the National Teacher Policy, what is it all about and what triggered it to come up?
Thank you, Andrew. Good afternoon, viewers. This teacher policy started way back. The study started way back in 2010, many years ago, 10 years ago. And this study was mainly to look at the factors that affect the quality of education in Uganda. And this study was sponsored by UNESCO. It was carried out in Uganda, mainly to look at the factors that affect the teaching profession.
Okay.
In 2014, this study was concluded, and a number of recommendations were made. It is from those recommendations that we came up with the National Teacher Policy. So they recommended that there must be the National Teachers Policy mainly to streamline the teaching profession in Uganda.
Okay.
If you look at our teaching profession of late, it had started to degenerate. Teachers out there and the public knows that some teachers are not behaving the way they're supposed to behave.
Yes.
And therefore, they are not respecting the profession. So what triggered us to come up with this is to put our house to order.
Okay.
To professionalize the profession, to look at the issues that are affecting the teaching profession. Back to the TISA report, they carried out a study. Of course, many teachers were consulted, and 47% of the teachers, actually when they were asked about the profession, they said they are not satisfied.
The teachers themselves?
The teachers themselves.
Okay.
59% among those who were interviewed, they said for them, much as they are in class teaching, if they can have another opportunity, they can abandon the teaching profession and do something else.
Oh.
It is only 16%
that can stand.
That clearly said that for us, we can move on for more 20 years to come.
16%?
16%.
Wasn't this worrying to people like you who sit at the headquarters?
Of course, it was. And then we asked ourselves why. They gave us a number of reasons why. If you go to these other offices, you can hardly fail to find a teacher. Go to the security forces, teachers are there. Go to the banks, the tailors are teachers.
Even here.
Even here in this studio, if you have to ask, you may find there are some teachers.
There is a teacher, Philbert is a teacher.
Now, then you ask us why. Then there is a need to go back and check ourselves. So the purpose of this is mainly, of course, I told you to professionalize, and also to rebuild our profession.
Okay, but let's look at now, when you look at the entire framework and all that has come in play, it comes at a very critical time. Why now? 10 years. This was in 2010. It has taken us 10 years to get to this.
Yes, thank you. And you know, a policy, it cannot be done in a year or two.
Of course, yes.
There are a number of issues you have to look at.
And stages.
As I said, from 2010 to 2014, they were only studying, looking at the report generated by UNESCO, funded by UNESCO, the TISA report. Now, from 2014 to 2019, they were working on the policy. Actually, it was approved on 1st April 2019.
Just last year.
Just last year, you can imagine. So a policy is not a simple thing that you can rush to. And so 2019 was approved by the cabinet, 1st April. And on 5th October, that's when it was launched, on Teachers' Day. So now, our work now is to disseminate, inform the public that the policy is here, and actually is here to stay and professionalize
the institution. Well, you've hinted on one thing, that was professionalizing the entire practice. I'm going to get back to you with regards to why we actually need it. And maybe just to engage a little bit of Mr. Barugahare, you are in the legal fraternity. You're looking at this from the legal framework. Where do we stand legally with regards to the framework?
Thank you very much, Andrew. Good afternoon, viewers. The teaching profession, much as it is a very, very noble profession, has been under-professionalized. And when we say professionalizing, it means you put in place the institutional framework, the policy framework, and the legal framework. Why? The legal framework is important because you have to define and limit the scope of members or the interaction of the members of the profession. As we speak, there has always been a code, the code for the teachers, but when you read it, it does not address. For example, it says it is a duty of every teacher to enforce the code. That's not how you regulate a profession. And it also says it is supposed to be enforced through committees. Those committees, I have really no idea whether they are actually functional. So what this policy has put in place, it has put in place a mechanism, one, for putting in place a National Teachers Council by law, so that it is given the legal mandate to define, but also to limit how members of the profession behave and how you join a profession, who is in and who is out. You cannot define that one by an administrative instrument. The profession has also been infiltrated by people who are not professional.
Masqueraders.
Masqueraders who don't have the expected competencies, and yet they purport to act as a teacher. For an ordinary person, a teacher is of somebody who stands in front of many people and talks and teaches. That is the profession is more than that. That before you even go there, you know what you can say, what you can't say, and you have been properly prepared. Moving forward, in terms of coming up with the National Teachers Bill, just like any other profession, if you look at the architects, you look at lawyers, you look at the doctors, there is always a law establishing, therefore regulating a profession. This has been lacking. We have now prepared principles in line with the policy to help the drafting of the National Teachers Bill. Those principles are before Cabinet, and once Cabinet approves them, then we will draft the bill that talks about the profession in its entirety and how it should be regulated. We will work with the First Parliamentary Council to draft the bill and take it back to Cabinet for approval, that the principles that Cabinet gives us have guided the drafting process. And then once Cabinet approves it, we will go to gazette it and thereafter forward it to Parliament for debate and enactment, as it were. That's where we stand.
So what stage are we at with
the principles are before Cabinet. The principles for drafting the National Teachers Bill are before Cabinet, and we are waiting for Cabinet
That is Mr. Baudgahare Brighton, the Assistant Commissioner for Policy Analysis. Now, Mr. Philbert Baguma, if I could engage you here, when you had all this, I'm sure UNAT was part of those stakeholders when this was all being drafted and coming up with. When you heard that this was coming in proportion years ago,
yes,
how were you excited when you got to know that we are at the level where that you can even now freely speak about it to the public?
Yes, of course, Uganda National Teachers Union was part of the development of the National Teachers Policy. And it has been long overdue. For your information, even when we are in our teacher training colleges, there is always a question: is teaching a profession or not?
Or is it passion?
And it disturbs.
To answer the question.
And therefore, of course, it is a profession.
Indeed.
Only that it remained without
a framework.
A framework to professionalize it. And therefore, every Tom, Dick, and Harry has been playing about with the teaching profession to the extent that even those who cannot read and write can intimidate the teachers. So it's high time that we moved from that kind of situation to a better position like any other profession. And therefore, we are looking at this national teachers policy as a policy that is going to streamline teacher management. And once teacher management is streamlined, it means we shall have well-motivated teachers who will increase productivity. Then we shall have retention. Like the gentleman is saying, the research which was conducted by the Ministry of Education and Sports realized that most of the teachers were squatters. And therefore,
they are waiting for another opportunity.
If any other opportunity came, they were ready to move. Simply because the teaching profession has been left to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And they take it as something that does not matter. Two, we are also looking at the qualifications.
Before you join the teaching practice?
Yes, before you join. When you look at other professions compared to the teaching profession, you will realize that we have a lot of nomenclature. You will have a teacher, you will have an instructor, you will have a tutor, you will have a lecturer, you will have, and they are all doing the same work. And therefore, there are people who stand and pretend to deliver or facilitate learning when they don't qualify to be. And you hear someone saying, I'm a teacher. He has never stepped in a teacher training college and does not in any way qualify to facilitate learning.
And the product, you see it on the ground when they are talking.
But when they are judging the teachers, they include even those pretenders as teachers, masqueraders. And therefore, we are looking at this national teachers policy to remove the masqueraders, and we have the teacher who qualifies to stand in front of learners and facilitate.
So it's entirely to protect the profession that has been ganged by masqueraders and anyone who would wish to.
Yes. Then we shall have, of course, to strengthen both in service and pre-service teacher training. So that the qualifications are first of all looked at. Today, you will find someone who has masters teaching nursery. They call it added advantage, personal added advantage.
Okay.
You have a degree, you are teaching in primary. That is personal added advantage. And it demoralizes because you have even acquired this qualification using your meager resources, and it is not considered, it is not taken care of, and therefore
Because you're in the same cluster.
it demoralizes.
Oh, yeah.
Then there is also the practice. There is a lot of assumption. For example, that a teacher of primary is trained to teach all subjects.
In primary.
Yes.
By the way,
That is
when I was
practically
growing,
possible.
I'll be honest with you, when I was growing, one day our English teacher didn't come through, and they sent us another teacher for another stream to teach us English.
Yes.
And this teacher we knew was a science teacher.
Yes.
But somehow she came with the books and said, this is your work, and she dictated, and somehow we sailed through. And we were in primary, yes. So there's always been that anyone teaching primary, any subject can, be taken up.
Which is an assumption, because you cannot know it all.
Yeah.
And therefore, even when we blame the teachers for the poor results registered, we are actually blaming the wrong person.
You should blame the policy.
The system itself is to blame for the results that come out of the system.
And here we
because
are.
it is made of assumptions.
And here we are.
Then we are supposed to look at streamlining the cross-cutting issues.
That's where we're coming, Mr. Baguma. Let me
Yes.
just engage you, Mr. Birungi, here.
Yes, please.
He has actually made it much more elegant that all this has been happening. We've been getting poor products. I'll be honest with you. The other day on TV, a member of parliament said that I'm going back to parliament that I can eat with you, a legislator. And this trickles back to the kind of education and the teachers possibly that could have taught him. Now, bringing this back to the conversation, why do we need this policy now? Vis-a-vis what is actually articulated and all that, I want you to take us through what is the vision for this, what is the mission for this, and what could be the bigger aim for this?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. As I stated earlier, the main reason for this teacher policy is to professionalize. And the late Professor Senteza Kajubi clearly stated that there is no education system that is better than the quality of its teachers.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to have quality teachers, if you want to have quality products, you begin with teachers.
True.
Okay? If you want to see the nation that has
Shifting.
no, yes, exactly, shifting, people who are not corrupt, people who are upright, begin with the teachers. Because whatever teachers do, that's what their
We do.
students, the products do. So that is the main thing. That's the bottom line. Yes.
That's where we're heading.
Exactly.
And the purpose of the policy is to professionalize. Could you be specific about the objects, rather the objectives of the entire policy?
The objectives.
Yes.
Yes. As my brother has already stated, we need to look at teachers who are highly motivated. Okay? Because we have a high rate of attrition, as I stated earlier. Attrition. Wherever you go, you find teachers. Why don't we have our own teachers remain the profession? So which means there are issues that we need to sort out. Highly motivated staff. That's number one.
Looking at the percentages you gave, there is a percentage, was it 46?
47
47?
of teachers who are not satisfied.
Teachers were not satisfied. How are we going to do this? What do we have in policy or at the back of our mind that we're going to do that is going to encourage a teacher? Like I can find my teacher and I say, that's my former teacher.
Yeah, thank you
Like
very
I'm
much.
proudly say, I can say that's my teacher, than seeing him and I hide and I start to run as fast as I can.
So we need, first of all, I told you, we need to rebrand.
The profession.
Exactly.
Thank you.
We need to rebrand. We need to bring a new face to the public. We need to bring back the lost glory of the profession. Because if you look at the 47% who are not satisfied, why are they not satisfied? It's not all about the money. There are a number of issues.
The environment.
You look at the environment, you look at the motivation.
Infrastructures where they're teaching.
Infrastructure, where you have heard of teachers who teach under the trees.
Yeah.
Okay? So we need to have a staff, the good working force that can put our education system to another step.
Wow.
Yes.
Mr. Bargahari, when you look at our education system, or our teachers' system to be exact, and you look at the regional system, what do you make of it?
Thank you very much, Andrew. There's no exact answer, depending on where you stand. But if we are going to assess the teacher against the pillars of education, i.e., learning to do, learning to know, learning to be, and learning to live together. And also now they have also added another one, learning to relearn, because you know there are people who say I have learned that, and it is the alpha and the omega. So if you cannot unlearn and therefore relearn, the world moves in one direction, but many things keep changing. So if those are the objects of education, then you have to look at who is the right person to do our teachers have knowledge. That question leaves a lot to be desired, because we are trying to go back to insist that you can't give what you don't have. Therefore, until recently, many people, you will hear somebody say, you see, my son failed, so I want him to join the TTC training college. In other words,
Oh, yes.
if they had passed, they wouldn't be
In the TTC.
now. And we are saying, like Bennett has said, you cannot have a country that is better than its quality of its
Oh, yeah.
teachers.
True.
So we are now insisting we want quality.
Quality.
People who join the profession must be of quality. So that that kind of trauma which follows that teachers, after all you failed, so you are clearly killing the motivation for these people to teach.
Does that mean the entry points are going to be a little bit
Definitely.
raised?
Definitely we are changing.
Oh,
We are changing the
everything
requirements
is
for you to
changing.
join.
Entry.
Currently, we have been insisting on a credit in English and mathematics and some kind of sciences, but we are now saying that is also going to change. In addition to those requirements changing, we will have to do some aptitude, because we have discovered some of the people who are very, very intelligent, their attitude is not worth being in a profession. And therefore, if you just only use grades,
You're
also
bound to lose.
opening another gate for some other elements that are a disaster to a profession. So the requirements of who has the knowledge to teach are going to change. Therefore, we no longer want teachers who are very good at theory, reproducing knowledge. If a theory was formulated, it was already published, it's already knowledge. So we want now teachers who are going to be facilitators of the learning process. Not these people who say, I know it all, who stand in front of learners, demonstrate how they know all sorts of things, and then say, wow, this person really knows his things. If he knows, he is not helping learners to acquire knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
Thirdly, are teachers able to do what they are talking about? Because you have had a situation where most of our graduates are unemployable.
Yet they are graduates.
Yes, they are graduates. It means they have been taught a lot of theory,
The skill
and we are
set
saying
is
theory
lacking.
is not taking us far. We are also trying to insist that they must inculcate values that reflect humanism. In other words, you don't want people who have a first-class degree, can't greet people, can't talk, can't do, that's animalism. Now, we are saying that those values also must be reflected from the teachers, so that the learners are able to say, I want to be like so and so. And those competencies, we think this policy is addressing straight these competencies, starting with the teachers, insisting that they must go for continuous professional development to rerun. Because if what you learned has already expired or has been overtaken by events, you must do CPD to make sure that you are abreast. As a member of the legal fraternity, this is mandatory. It has not been working in the teacher.
You must.
Every year you get a PC, and for you to get it, you must accumulate points. And those points come by bringing new dynamic areas in the profession, and that you have attended them, either presentation, conferences, workshops, so that every time you don't keep the old knowledge you acquired in class and you insist that it is still the only knowledge. So we think this policy is the best thing that has happened to teachers in very, very many years.
Well, Phil, but we're going to get to you about exactly, especially about the prerequisites for one now to join and how that is going to be. We're still having a conversation about the national teacher policy that is already at the bill. It's at the bill stage, but this is already coming up. News texts have been raised, how you join the profession, the requirements and all that. It's a conversation we're having on Twitter. The hashtag is National Teacher Policy. We'll take a break and we'll be back shortly. National Teacher Policy, National Teachers Policy. We are live from Kampala's Friendly Conference Center. I'm Andrew Chamagran. With me in studio, I have Mr. Philbert Baguma, who happens to be the General Secretary of the Uganda National Teachers Union. I have Mr. Barugahale Brighton, the Assistant Commissioner for Policy Analysis from the Ministry of Education. And I have Mr. Birungi Bennett, the National Policy Coordinator, still from the Ministry of Education and Sports. Thank you so much, the ones who are online and are part of this conversation. It brings a lot more pleasure to understand that you're part of this. Now, Mr. Philbert, before we went for a break, Mr. Barugahale alluded to the fact that they're raising the bar.
Yes.
It's not going to be business as usual, that someone can be a student and, they come back, they detect a few notes here and there, and they stay as teachers. What does this mean to the profession teaching as you are?
Of course, I had alluded that the suffering of the teaching profession stems from colonial rule. We have come along having all sorts of nomenclature. Vernacular teachers at one time, then grade 2 teachers, then grade 3, grade 5. We had also grade 4 at one point, and then diploma, degree, and so on. When you go to other professions, all that does not exist. And possibly that justifies the reason why the teacher is taken with low esteem. And that's why even when the students have failed to go for other courses, they will say, since all have failed, let me go to the teaching profession. To the extent that even parents, even those who have not gone to school, they think going to the teaching profession means you have failed elsewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And yet, the teaching profession is the mother of all other professions. And therefore, we need to do away with all this. Globally, if you look at countries with the best education systems, you first of all qualify as a teacher.
I'll give you an example. Estonia, one of the countries that have the youngest, brightest children. To teach in a kindergarten, you must be a master's holder in education. So
Even Finland.
Even Finland.
Yeah.
So you can really see that we are looking at a profession that nurtures all other professions, but still remains with the low esteem. And raising the standard will help to regain the lost glory of the teaching profession, in the sense that these scenarios of divide and rule should come to an end.
Okay.
Where even when you have a master's and you are in a nursery, someone who has a master's in a primary thinks his is superior to yours. And yet you got them from the same institution. The one who has it, actually, even when you have someone with a diploma who is in primary, and there is a one with a bachelor's in nursery, the one in the primary thinks is a class above. And therefore, to do away with all this, we need to have a standardized qualification framework.
Nice.
If you want to become a teacher, first of all, qualify as a teacher, regardless of where you are going. Once you have qualified as a teacher, then choose where to go. You may choose to go and teach nursery. You may choose to go and teach primary.
But you're a standard
You
teacher.
may choose to go and teach secondary. You may choose to go for tertiary. You may choose to go to the universities. Then from there, you now specialize where to go. If you want to go administration, go administration. If you want to go to become a specialist, a curriculum specialist, choose to go there. But in terms of qualification, you are at par. And therefore, we don't see a teacher despising another teacher.
Because we have one standard.
You are doing the same. You are all facilitating learning. And therefore, you have the same qualifications you can add on, but if
the baseline is the
if
same.
you are saying, I am a teacher, you are a teacher. The baseline becomes one. Like, if you go to other professions, if you are a lawyer, you are a lawyer. You may choose business law, you may choose land law, you may choose whatever you choose, but you are a lawyer. Then seniority will come in later. Other qualifications will come in later. But you must have Bachelor of Laws, then you go for the bar course.
It's a prerequisite.
It's a prerequisite. So we as a teaching profession must also have a prerequisite. Because we have those who will be lawyers, but they want to go to the law school. But having qualified as a lawyer does not make you qualified to stand in front of children and facilitate learning. No. You are crossing a borderline, and therefore you must do what is there, what is done there. You don't simply cross because you are a lawyer and you are going to teach law.
Mr. Filbert, right there, he said that they're raising the bar with regards to the qualifications, how you join the institutions, how you join the practice, to be exact.
Yes.
Don't you think in one way or the other it's going to deter some people who are possibly passionate but maybe without good grades, but they would possibly thrive there and they excel exceedingly great?
What stops others from joining other professions must stop you from joining the teaching profession. Because it is a profession, full stop. So if you cannot join other professions because of low marks, don't join the teaching profession because of low marks. Because we want to see a profession that is really not being undermined anymore. So that when you say, I am a teacher, we want to do away with the issues of, I am a mere classroom teacher. No, you cannot get a doctor saying, I am a mere doctor. You cannot get a lawyer saying, I am a mere doctor. A counselor for a parish, or an LC1 chairperson who cannot read and write, proudly says, even they give themselves the title honorable. I am the honorable counselor. And the teacher comes in to say, I am a mere teacher. No, we must deal with this situation.
Okay. So,
and have people who are enjoying their profession, who are well trained, well motivated, and well facilitated
to practice what they
do, be proud of it, and love it like any other profession.
Okay.
Yes.
Coming to Mr. Birungi, with all that said, it appears that the League of Fraternity, the UNATU, everyone seems to be in unison for this.
Yes.
But now I'm looking at the policy, but there has to be the policy, then the guidelines, and then the implementation.
Sure.
Now, let's look at the implementation. How are we hoping to standardize, especially the entry points like you had? He's very versatile on that. He can't break his back when he's emphasizing that. So how do we standardize the teacher development with regard to the qualification and the practice across all levels of education?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. First of all, we must set standards. Standard that we must maintain. You know, of late, we have been admitting students to join PTCs or primary teachers colleges after senior 4. And you know, these days, students complete actually when they are still young.
Oh, yeah.
At the age of 15, someone is done with senior 4. Then he or she joins PTC for 2 years. He completes when he's 17 years. Therefore, this teacher, the so-called teacher, is still a child, according to the Indian Constitution.
Oh, yeah.
So we are risking. We are now entrusting this teacher, who is a child, with another child.
That is risky.
That is risky.
Yeah.
So after looking at that, we said, no, this won't work. After senior 4, we want you now to join A level, 2 years.
Okay.
Senior 5, senior 6.
You're waiting for him to mature enough
To
make
mature,
sound decisions.
both physically and mentally, because he grows. Then, after passing very well, as the council put it, we are not going to be taking each and everybody who do wish to join the profession. First of all, you must have the positive attitude towards the profession. Secondly, you must have passed.
So
Okay?
it's going
Because
to
you're
be
going
more
to
like
set
an
the
amplitude
standard.
test for anyone to
Exactly.
go. Oh,
Because
I
you know,
love
when I was starting the discussion, I gave you the brief
Yeah.
of the teacher report. Those teachers who are not satisfied, most of them joined the profession maybe because they were coerced.
By parents. or
It was
relatives.
not their own initiative. So a person who has joined the profession, when he's not happy, automatically cannot enjoy the profession.
True.
So you're also looking at that. So after joining now the institute, this person is supposed to undergo a 4-year training. 3 years in class, and then 1 year
In practice.
in practice, school practice, or what you call the practical.
Oh, yes.
So those are 4 years. Yes.
I want again to look at the training. Is this just going to be about the teachers' policy, or it's going to trickle from up to down? That even the ones who have been teaching in the teachers' colleges, it's something that's going to be cutting across all borders, irregardless.
Now, with this policy, of course, each category will be handled differently. Right now, we are working on the curriculum. Those who want to teach primary will not be given the same content with the person who's going to teach secondary and tertiary institution.
Okay.
So the curriculum is being reviewed. After that, of course, we shall now start the implementation.
Rolling it out.
Yeah.
Oh, that is very exciting. Council, I'm going to engage you now about the priorities, the key priorities for the national teachers policy. What are some of those key priorities we're looking at?
Thank you very much, Andrew. There are many priorities because, as you can see, this policy that touches the profession.
A lot.
Literally, everything is a
Yes.
priority. But I'm going to mention 4 priorities. Number 1 is the establishment of the National Teachers Council. Why is that a priority? We want a regulator.
Oh, yes.
We want a body to regulate the profession. So that it is not UNATU, it is not, because UNATU, as you can see, has many faces.
And UNATA has always come out in the media when there is a strike,
so sometimes I use
when there is SACCO money that went missing, and at times even to agitate for more for the teachers.
That is not the right impression.
But we are going to get to that,
actually,
Mr.
even
Philbert.
now, I told you I was in Bukedia.
Yes.
The reason I had gone there, there is a project which we are having in Teso and Western.
Okay.
It is called Simameni.
Meaning?
Stand together. It is a Swahili word which means stand together, and we are now looking at girl child education in secondary subsector.
Thank you.
So that is not a strike.
So
Yes.
I was trying to emphasize
Yes, Mr. Wal, go
that
ahead.
the establishment of a National Teachers Council is going to bring fast forward the teaching profession, which is the mother of all professions,
Yeah.
but has been an orphaned because itself is not regulated.
Yeah.
You train doctors, they are very well regulated. You train lawyers, very well regulated.
Even us are very regulated.
Architects, journalists. Then when it comes to them, there is no professional body to regulate them, to register, to license, and to re-register, to listen to their professional misconduct. That has been a gap. We think that's a priority. Because it is very difficult now. Recently, teachers define themselves by what they teach, which is very dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
You find sometimes a science teacher, and the infights now between them, those who teach science, and they say that you are a teacher.
Yeah.
What you teach is an area of specialization. So that is a priority number 1, establishing of a National Teachers Council by an act of parliament to regulate the profession. The second priority is establishment of Uganda National Institute for Teacher Education. The one that will be similar to the Institute for Teacher Education, which used to sit at Chambogo. So that you have an institute that is specifically dedicated to teacher education. These days,
trains them.
It trains them. It is responsible for continuous professional development. It is responsible to know the real content, the latest methodologies of teaching and all those things. And then to regulate which institution teaches, accredits programs, approves curriculum, so that you have the same standard teacher. Currently, you may not be very sure what happens in different training institutions. That's our second priority. And work has already commenced. There is a task force that has been put in place to manage the preliminary, because as you can see, it's not going to be like a switch where you move from nowhere to having a unit. We are doing preliminary work. The third issue is what Philbert has hinted on. The third priority is to have a qualification framework for the teaching profession. So that everybody who's a teacher must fit in that framework, first and foremost. Not to come and say, nursery teachers, somebody says, those who are afraid to get jobs, those who are in their homes, are turning their homes into, say, I am just a nursery teacher. Now, a nursery teacher, we are saying you cannot have our kids if we are not very sure about your quality.
You're not confident.
You are not confident, and we are not sure the methods you are using. So we are saying we are regulating it as so the qualification framework will address teachers at all levels.
Nice.
And therefore design who is teaching at what level and what is your competence, and we have no doubt about that. Finally, to mainstream cross-cutting issues. We have teachers who are not in sync with the cross-cutting issues to do with the environment, issues to do with the gender, issues to do with the HIV/AIDS. These issues to do with ICT, issues to do with... Now, those issues are so cross-cutting, including critical thinking and communication. There are people who say, my work is teaching mathematics, but they don't tell people to communicate how is mathematics applicable in solving society problems. So those issues are going to be the main priority of the policy, so that a teacher, there are things we expect as a mere minimum, and whether you are teaching mathematics, physics, history, or whatever you are teaching, we expect this minimum, and to integrate knowledge. Because cross-cutting issues are about how do men and women relate in society. But if you insist on teaching, children will not know how to rate issues of domestic violence, issues of environmental degradation, are coming because our children are spending a lot of time in education institutions, and they come with no knowledge on how these cross-cutting issues are at play moving forward.
Because it was the teacher.
So we think those are core priorities the policy will address on. So every teacher, I wanted also to say, you said, what about teachers? There are teachers who are already past the cutoff.
Okay.
But we are saying there is a transition period. And in that transition period, we are requiring teachers to adjust, especially those who seem to be very young and are going to be in a profession for much longer. Those who are about to retire, we can accommodate them as they exit. But if you are still young and you want to be relevant moving forward, you must retrain.
Okay.
Moving forward.
Mr. Philbert, what becomes of, imagine I'm already within the training institute, but the cutoff points as per this policy, when it rolls out and it's already in practice, it finds me in. Already I'm undergoing the training.
Yes.
And what becomes of me? Are we going to first go back and we check the house again from in-house, that we are clearing all the masqueraders, Kwanzaa out, as we're bringing in the creme de la creme, that it meets the cream in here? What becomes of those who are already in the institutions?
First of all, the laws do not operate retrospectively. And therefore, if you are already in the institution and you are training, obviously you will train through that cycle where you are. But once you come out, you are going to be treated as those who are already in the system.
Okay.
You have qualified, yes, but now there is a window that there is a need for you to retrain, retool, reskill, so that you fit in the current framework.
So that means the attitude must be positive to readjust.
Yes.
Okay.
Being a young person, you see, change is a fact of life. And even when you don't want change,
it will come.
Change will change you, because the world is moving.
True.
And when you don't have plans for this world, it will always have plans for you. And therefore, if you are a young teacher, there is no reason why you should not yearn to be up to date.
Oh, yeah.
And if you yearn to be up to date, then you should be taking it as an advantage before you get a lot of things to clog you. If you are already having so many challenges, you have children, they are in school, but you are remaining with very few years to retire, then you can remain in the system, because the government does not operate in a way that this is a full stop, it is a full stop. No, you can transit and exit because you are already having so many things and you may not manage. But those who are still young should aspire to inspire others before they expire, because there is always time for expiring. And that's why they should be encouraged and motivated to move forward, because what we are looking at is really a profession that has a motivated working force, that is well trained, well equipped, well supported, and well remunerated.
Well, thank you so much, Phil. But this is feedback from online. Now we have Fadosa Ahmed. You go by Adaus, _Yusuf says, this discussion to cry out loud should have happened very many years ago. The quality of teachers is very low, and that's why in Karamoja we can't expect good results from learners when the input is very poor. Thank you so much, Fadosa. Then Mbalaba Vincent, he says, I had one of my friends in a government school who had a P1 class. She had taught for the last 10 years. When the teacher was given a transfer at her new school, she was given a P7 class to teach. So this person has nothing more than starting to teach candidates. Imagine that one is teaching her students. Then this one saying, it is true, this is seen to be in most of government schools where you just teach the subject without a teacher and you go on. And Lady Mary, I think that you go by that name. He says, let's be very honest. Once all this comes in shape, do we need an overhaul change of the teachers in the current school where they are? Or are they going to be rechecked again? Mr. Birunji, the teachers currently teaching us, thank you so much, the ones on the digital platforms. There is that's a very pertinent question. So what becomes of the teachers we already have? And they're in the system and they're teaching our children.
Yes, thank you, Andrew, and the viewers. This policy will be implemented. That is good news, and for those who are about to retire in a period of 10 years.
Oh.
So for those who are already in the system, they can continue teaching. But of course, as we implement, they will also be retiring. But as Philbert put it, for those who are still young, I'm appealing to them to go and upgrade.
Okay.
Because the institutions are there, they are all over, they can upgrade. By the time this policy is implemented, at least they are somewhere. Yes, please.
Wow. As we're winding up this conversation, we want to thank you, all of you, for being a part of this. Mr. Philbert,
yes.
I'm a teacher. I'm watching NTV today, and you're talking about a policy of this magnitude. What is my role? What role do I play as a teacher to make sure that I plug into this policy straight up?
First of all, if you are a qualified teacher and you are watching this show, first of all is to look at your priorities and start thinking of how do you fit into the new normal. Because we have been having teachers who are discouraged even to upgrade. I mean, you upgrade from grade 3 to grade 5, there is nothing. You upgrade from grade 5 to bachelor's degree, there is nothing. Even right now, we have got so many teachers who upgraded and they have bachelor's degrees, they have masters, others have PhDs, and they are in a primary. They continue to be paid as grade 3 teacher.
Very demoralizing.
Very demoralizing. And demotivating. And therefore, if you are a teacher and you are there, and you had not thought of going to upgrade, Someone said, some scholar said, the best time to plant a tree was
now.
5 years ago, but you never planted it. The next best time is now. Not today, but now.
Now.
And therefore, if any teacher is watching this show, the best thing is now to start programming on how to go and upgrade. What we need to do now is to convince Ministry of Education and Sports to see how we can factor in the support of these teachers who are already in the system, how they can go to upgrade to a level where we feel the teacher in the new normal will be. And then we have the learners benefit from the teaching learning process.
Thank you so much. Mr. Balgahalu, your last words today in this show?
Thank you very much, Andrew. We don't have to live in the past. Because the past, from the way my colleague Freeman
5 years ago,
since independence, has not been a good past.
Oh, yes.
Currently, let's move very fast and live in the present reality, is that the teaching profession is a noble profession. That being the case, it imposes responsibilities for those who want to enjoy the benefits of a noble profession. It is not going to come so easily. We are talking about transition. Yeah. But you see, let me now go back to law. Equity helps the vigilantes. It's the principle of nature of equity. That there is nothing like fairness in this world. That the fairness, those who enjoy fairness, are those who are vigilant, who are proactive, to take the bold step ahead of others. Yes. That if you sit and say, I am a teacher, well, let me see what government, then people are even going to say, are they increasing salary, the policy? The salary, we are trying to streamline because the situation has been not okay. Yes. But if there are many benefits in the policy, I would encourage, finally, teachers to have this policy and understand it. Yeah. Because sometimes you are looking for salary, you find, even in the private teachers, we are saying it is now going to be very difficult for people who don't give these teachers contracts. Because we are giving them security. We are not giving them money, but we are giving them security. And that security is very important. You can get a loan with it, you can at least stay at a place and work and know you will be there for the next 2 years, because they have a contract. And that is very important. So people should not look at the short-term benefits. This is a revolution within the teaching profession, and I would want teachers to be the champions of their revolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wahal. Mr. Birunji, while we're winding up as a policy analyst here, what could be your last words?
Yes, thank you once again, Andrew. My fellow teachers out there, this is the best opportunity for you. And I'm appealing to you to use it rightly, simply because if we don't improve ourselves, if we don't work on our profession, then where else can work on it? So we are the people who should work and improve it and put our profession to another level.
Wow.
I thank you.
Thank you so much. That was my panel this afternoon. This conversation about this policy is still underway. We still have more shows that will become bit by bit. We're taking it bit by bit. But we want to thank the Ministry of Education, of course, together with UNESCO, that has made sure that this show is a reality today. And for the teachers who are part of this conversation, you can drop your conversation on NTV. We'll pick up your queries and questions. And in our subsequent conversations, we'll actually plug into it. I'm Andrew Chamagedo, and have a lovely afternoon.